we're used to thinking of ourselves in parts. So for instance, my elbow hurts and my knee hurts. So I have two problems. Well, actually, it's all connected. Today, we're going to talk about the hips and the lower back. So much lower back pain, interconnected. I am so glad you're doing this platform, because to re-inject into the general population, we are a whole person, and you have the ability to create all these positive changes.
Hey everyone, I am doing a little equipment maintenance here in the equipment room at Elk River Studios. What an episode of Somatic Fanatic we have for you today. It's going to be great. We're going to start out with little somatic fundamentals, as we often do. We're going to talk about how we move in circles, that we don't actually move in straight lines, even though it may seem that way. Then we're going to do another somatic reaction, where I'm going to watch a great video by one of my heroes, Tom Myers, all about some great self-massage you can do to relieve tension in your neck somatically. And then our guest instructor today is Heather Beachum. Really amazing story. Heather is a pain reduction specialist who works with horses quite a bit, and horse riders who have had all kinds of serious injuries and overcome mountains of pain. You don't want to miss a minute of it. Let's get started. Welcome to Somatic Fanatic. So on this somatic fundamental class, it's not going to be a very long class. I want to talk about something very simple, but so important when you are training for movement. When you're doing any kind of somatic training, it can be touch-based, it can be movement-based. A whole lot of disciplines are movement-based, moving to train your nervous system for higher levels of function. And of course, when we're moving to train our nervous system, we're always moving in slow motion while paying attention to what it feels like. In greater and greater detail, there's all kinds of tricks of how to pay attention to the physical feeling. By this point, you may know this already. That is one of the core somatic fundamentals: slow motion movement while feeling it in greater detail. Today, what I want to talk to you about is this misperception many of us wind up having about moving in a straight line. Here's my hand attempting to move in a straight line. When we're walking, our head seems to be moving in a straight line. We're moving toward what we want to go to in a straight line. My hand is moving in a straight line. There's many times that we are trying to move in a straight line, and this can create a little bit of confusion. Now, remember, as we train our nervous system, we're trying to feel in more and more detail. And one of the great ways to feel is to really remind yourself of certain realities. The reality is that when it comes to our body parts moving in conjunction with each other, maybe not, I can move in a straight line if I'm going straight down a road, but as far as any movement I make with my body, the relationship to all the other body parts is never, ever a straight line. It's never a straight line. It is partial circles, arcs, partial arcs. The only way we can move is with our joints. And there's two variables we have. One is circle upon circle upon circle upon circle, circle, half circle, half circle, half circle. This is clear. Or we can twist around the circles, and we can do all of these things. Circles and helixes. Nature loves circles for motion, partial arcs, let's say. We're not doing a full circle with our finger. We can't go any further past that unless we're, what I'm saying. But a lot of the joints only move really in one direction, and they're blocked in the other direction. Our spine, of course, can move in every direction, but not as much as a finger. So we have a limited amount of arc that we can do, but we can arc in any direction we want in the spine to a degree. And then in movement, nature loves the helix and the double helix. Everything from the patterns of space dust all the way down through DNA are in this helix. So try something with me for a second about this helix. Of course, we only have our joints. We can only either move like this or like this. We can rotate, as we call it. Here's the, I'm rotating the limb. Let me keep it up on the camera. I can rotate the limb, or I can move the joints in their natural way. I'm sure there's a scientific word for all this. I'm a simple guy. I don't always know the scientific words, everybody. I know arm, I know finger. Good enough for me. So let's try this. Let's move our hand out with the palm up away from us, real slow, and feel the effort it takes. I'm feeling effort, of course, here by the shoulder. This is classic. As I move back, let's think of all the semicircles that are happening. There's a semicircle happening in my elbow. There's a little bit of a semicircle happening right here in the wrist. As the orientation of that hand changes, there's a semicircle happening this way in the shoulder, and there's a semicircle happening as the shoulder blade comes around the back ribs also. So there's lots of semicircles happening in this overhand, please take the cookie kind of motion that I'm making, right? And I get a sense, we all get a sense of how much effort it takes to do that, how much effort here in the chest, how much effort in the shoulder, how much effort in the bicep, how much effort everywhere. Doing all. Now let's try this with the palm down. Same thing. You feel any differences? Are there any muscles that are not working as hard now? Are there any muscles, as we do the same simple, I'll do it sideways, the same simple, hand stays flat, and I'm moving it in the straight line that I just said is not possible? And you see why it's not possible, because there's an arc here. There's an arc at the elbow. There's an arc as the shoulder blade comes around the ribs. There's lots of semicircles going on. The only thing that's straight is my fingers and palm in relationship to the floor, but in relationship to my other body parts, there's no straight lines, there's only the circles. So you can feel a little bit different effort happening here, a little bit different effort happening in the arm with the palm down. So now let's rest the arm for a second. Feel the residual sensation. Just as an experiment, now we're going to very slowly start with the palm up, and as we move forward, move in a helix. Move in this helix, in this corkscrew manner. Just remind you, Karate Kid. Remember Karate Kid? The doom, the turning over of the palm. We do this in a lot of martial arts. Why? Why this corkscrew motion? What is the advantage of this? Why the helix? Why the semicircle now in this other sense? We've got the semicircle in that sense. We've also got the semicircle in the sense of twists. We can twist our arms. We can twist from twisting arms where the shoulders are. We can twist our spine. Some of us can more than others. Some of us can way more than me, that's for sure. The helix is always the most efficient. It's moving the work around. If I come this way and stay this way, all these same muscles do this work the whole way through. If I twist, it changes which muscles are engaged. It keeps any single muscle group from doing too much work. It spreads the work around, so there's less effort from any individual muscle. It's one of the many things helix motion does. But I just want to advertise to you that sometimes when you get up, you can get up in a little bit of a helix. You can go down in a little bit of a helix. You can get up out of a chair starting, let's see, how do I get this in the, like this, just like I just did with the thing, having this sense of turning, being free. So I invite you all, let's do a little something to see how free our arms are, to twist, to act like a swimmer, to bring that palm over like a martial artist. This is not just for fighting. This is for practical things. I'm gonna pick up something. I don't have to just do this. I can incorporate this twist. I can incorporate this twist as I pick my self-massager up and bring it back to me. This twist, keeping things loose. So let's do it. Let's start with both of our palms here and let's slowly bring them out in front of us. Breathe. Feel that space, whatever space you might have. Bring them back. See if we can do it any easier now with any less effort by bringing the hands out and rotating them. Rotate them as much as you can. I'm going to bring my thumbs all the way down. And I'm going to bring my thumbs all the way back on the way back. And feel how that effort changes in the muscles of your arms as you start with your thumbs out, palms up, right? I'm just going to experiment. Palms that way, palms this way, slow. I'm feeling, wow, that's what a difference that is for me. This, let's hold them out here for a second. Rest if you have to. But wow, how quick do your arms fatigue here? Put the palms down. It's almost like a new lease on life. It's almost like you're starting over. A lot of those muscles that were doing work with the palms up are suddenly relaxed. So maybe if you had to hold your arms out a whole long time, just switching back and forth might buy you some extra time because you can change where the work is happening. And now let's nice and slowly start palms up, thumbs out to guide you if you want. And as you bring them forward, twist them over and back. Let's do it again to compare. Less work now. Less work, less work. Stay loose. Keep your neck relaxed. Less effort. Let's try it the other way. Let's get the palms down and let's helix out. What does that feel like? That doesn't feel quite as easy to me as going the other way, but let's experiment. You can try your elbows out, you can try your elbows tucked down, whatever you want. The key is not, with somatic training, of course, we're doing stuff and we're doing variations, but it's just all experiments. We're just doing it to feel. There's no goal, there's no counting, there's no reps. We're just moving so that we can feel all the things involved in this motion in more and more detail. That's all I really want to express to you today on somatic fundamentals is think in terms of semicircles when you're moving. Whether you're walking, it's all kinds of semicircles. As I'm walking, think of how many semicircles are interacting between my spine, the arms, the knees, the legs, the ankles, the hips. Lots and lots and lots of circles, all interacting so that you can have this feeling that you're moving straight through space, when in reality, all your body parts are moving in arcs, in semicircles. And efficient movement, also keep in mind this helix. Keep in mind twisting, that you want to twist, you want to twist, you want lots of motion. Even as you're walking, your shoulder should be sort of like an ice cream cone, kind of going this way, while your hips are sort of an ice cream cone, double ice cream cone going the other way, you know, like that, while the shoulders are going against it. But lots and lots of motion. The more motion, the better. You want to spread that work out through the body. Don't get it all trapped in one spot to do some kind of work. Spread it out. by celebrating, by feeling all these semicircles that are working together, and feel how delicious that all is. And keep that in mind. Circles, 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 everybody. And that's it for today's Somatic Fundamentals.
I fell off a horse. I broke my right arm right there. I did everything, and I couldn't lift my arm up more than that. So then I discovered Feldenkrais. Well, look, I could take a ballet class.
This podcast brought to you by Painworks. We're here to explore nervous system training for people in pain today. So if you're in pain, you are in the right place. And I'm about to react to a video that was suggested to me by my staff, and it happens to be one of my heroes, really one of my heroes, Tom Myers, the developer of the Anatomy Train system. And by an amazing coincidence, Tom's setup, his headquarters, is also in Maine. It's a long way from here. It's about 2.5 hours. I've only been there a couple times, but Tom Myers is a scientist's scientist. He knows everything there is to know about fascia. What is fascia? Fascia is this extracellular material that allows our body to take its form. It's what the muscle cells pull on that make us move. The muscle cells contract, they pull on the fascia that they're embedded in, and the fascia is sort of like the ropes that react to the muscles and give us our ability to move and to feel. In fact, I think on the list there's a reaction that's going to be coming up on another podcast all about Tom Myers explaining to us what is fascia. This is going to be really great, but what I want to share with you today is especially for people in neck pain. And Tom is going to show us how we can work on our own necks anytime we want. We have total access to our necks, and Tom has a great way of bringing relief after a long day and your neck is aching and you just want to settle down and enjoy time with your family, your loved ones, your friends, and that neck ache is really getting in the way. You don't always have to reach for muscle relaxers. You don't always have to reach for ibuprofen. There are means you can take with your own two hands to relieve your neck ache. Let's see what Tom suggests for us all. Tom Myers.
Hi, this is Tom. I'm back in the library again, and two things are true. One is I can't get a haircut in this time of social isolation, and the other one is I'm spending so much time crouched over the computer that my neck is taking the heat, so I thought I would share my self-help piece with the neck. So the first thing is that the outer cylinder, the outer fascial cylinder of the neck is the trapezius and sternocleidomastoid combined. So put your knuckles along your sternocleidomastoid, but take a great big, use this whole surface of this proximal phalange bones of your knuckles, but not digging in with your knuckles, but kind of peel yourself like a kiwi around to the back at the same time that you're turning away from it. Yeah, get the idea? Put your fist up against, don't go front of the sternocleidomastoid, that's delicate territory. But if you put your hand on the sternocleidomastoid and peel your fascia of your superficial cylinder, you're going to get glide and release between that and the cylinders underneath, the visceral cylinder and the motor cylinder. But we're going to leave the visceral cylinder alone today and go for that motor cylinder. So once you've done this, you can also go up to the top of the sternocleidomastoid and getting under the mastoid process or along the mastoid process. Lift that tissue up. This should burn a little bit if you're really doing yourself some good in here and you're going behind your ear all the way to the top of where your ear is attached. If you get to your hair, it might pull a little bit, too bad, but you're trying to get all the way up to here to the asterion, where your parietal and temporal and occipital bone meet. That's a great thing to do there.
Okay, so as some of you may have noticed, Tom, being a scientist, is chock full of anatomy terms. Lots of Latin coming at you. Don't let it throw you. If you're a person like me that after I hear a few too many Latin words, I start like, whoa, Tom, have mercy on me. This is Tom's thing. He is not going to stop. He's going to keep talking to you in terms of Latin, but just follow along while he's doing it. Backtrack in the podcast, stop, pause, try. And what I want to just add that as Tom is doing, so he showed us two moves, right? One along the side where we're turning the opposite way as we're peeling the soft part of our fists. He talked about the knuckles, but also let your fingers be part of it. The knuckles and the fingers. The fingers, if you keep them loose, as you're going against this fascia, and especially in sensitive areas where it might be resisting from release, there's two things I'd like to add to what Tom's doing. To do the same thing he's talking about, but one, keep your fingers loose so there's this benevolent touch. The touch of the knuckles is doing a lot of the business of it, but the nervous system is always trying to determine, more so when it's somebody else touching you, but even with your own knuckles, is this mean-spirited toughness or is it tough love? Is it benevolent toughness? So having the fingers loose and in proximity to where you're working gives the nervous system signals that everything's okay. Even when you're the one doing the work, it still calms you down. And the other thing, let's go to the one he was showing us in the back with the fingers. You want to get under the skull. You're trying to get under this skull area and then around and up. But before you get to, let me turn around. So we're here, yeah? Ultimately, we're going to be coming up here, but before we get to the skull, you can, while this pressure is here, you can start tilting your head. You can turn your head. While you're applying this upward pressure, you can try downward pressure, but he's talking about up and you feel it. You can tilt your head, you can invite, you can turn, you can tilt, you can move down and up. So never be afraid to move the piece that you're working on. If I'm working on my arm, I can work on my arm this way, or I can work on my arm where I'm wiggling my fingers, I'm moving my wrist around while that pressure is on my arm. It's giving a lot more three-dimensional information to the nervous system as the piece of the body where pressure is being applied is actually in slow, relaxed motion. It changes the relationships in all this fascia. It gives the nervous system a lot more information. You get a lot more release and a lot more longer lasting release by keeping the part that's getting worked on in the party. Have that be part of what's happening. So I recommend while you're doing what Tom is recommending, just keep your head very loosely involved. Explore the neck by moving the neck. Move the part that's getting worked on. The results will be that much better. Enough of my stuff. Let's go back to the master.
There, and then you can go under the mastoid process with a nice strong finger on both sides, coming in and under as if you were trying to squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube toward the nuchal ligament at the midline. You can do that more than once. You can do this more than once. I'm only going to do it once because we're now going to go into the motor cylinder. So take your thumb and pull your sternocleidomastoid forward with your thumb and press your thumb in underneath. You're saying that feels nervy. Yes, this is an endangerment site, but what's the other side of danger? Excitement. So it's an excitement site. So let's go in and not get too excited. If you feel the nervy bit, that's the brachial plexus. Drop in front of that with your thumb to pick up the really strong cable. Can you feel it? Of your anterior scalene. If you can feel the anterior scalene, you'll feel it on the in-breath. So I feel it talking right now, moving.
Wow, that is a bumper sticker. If you can feel the anterior scalene. Let's try it all together. Let's do exactly what he said, but let's take our time. There's a part here that Tom knows a great Latin word to describe that really hurts quite a bit. You can feel that. Just press it so you say, wow, that's the zinger. Go a little in front of that and you'll feel this cable that you can feel pressure, but not nearly as much. And so that's what we want to play with. And I encourage you again to do whatever Tom's saying, and I'll back it up so when we come back, so we don't miss anything he's saying, but also press that cable, and let's all do this together. Very slowly look away and tilt your head a little toward it. Wow. As you bring your ear toward that, you feel how it's releasing? On many of us, any sense of releasing? Turn your face back. It doesn't come back quite as tight as when you started. So let's do it again. It's a little released. I'm going to look away. I feel a little release. Bring the ear a little more toward that. I'm still pressing on that cable, and not the part that hurts, in front of the part that hurts. And I can go back and forth. Wow, I feel all this, even as I'm talking, I feel all kinds of stuff happening. Do you? Now try to maybe tuck our elbow in so there's not so much work being done on the shoulder. Wow, that I felt that relaxed now too. Just the fact that I was doing that was putting certain signals into my neck to contract. If I tuck this in, maybe if I hold it. We're experimenting here. We're exploring here. What Tom's talking about is not a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. It's an A plus B, or maybe B plus G. We're feeling, we're doing, and we are feeling. I'm going to back up a touch, just a touch, so we don't miss a word with all my yakking. I'm sorry if it's annoying that I'm interrupting these videos, but just so you know, it's going to happen. There's 2 reasons to do it. One is for copyright, that we can't play a video all the way through. I can't just pop 15 minutes or 8 minutes, 29 seconds of Tom onto Somatic Fanatic and just let it run. The law does not allow us to do that, so I have to interrupt. And 2, I'm trying to interrupt, especially with learned people like that, like Tom, who are just firing off Latin and scientific terms, where for us normal folks on Main Street, USA, if that gets to be a bit much, I jump in to say, hey, don't panic, everybody. Stick with it. A neck is a neck, an elbow's an elbow, a finger's a finger, even if the experts call them $10 words all day long. This is still of benefit for all of us. Let's get back to Tom. I backed up about 10 seconds. Let's see what he's up to.
Anterior scalene. If you can feel the anterior scalene, you'll feel it on the in-breath. So I feel it talking right now, moving. But if you take a nice deep in-breath, you'll feel that anterior, oh yes, I'm on the anterior scalene. If it's sending pain down your arm, then lighten up. You're drawing in the fascia of the brachial plexus. You can turn your neck as you go up. The scalene goes up and a little bit back and a little bit in. So finding it, it's a big strong steel cable right in front of the nerves. Just avoid the nerves and avoid the nervy pain, but get in front of that and go up and in and back a little bit. If you really go all the way to the end, you will get to the transverse processes and you'll feel them like little bumps in there if your tissue is open. Now, don't press on the nerves, go behind the nerves and get the one behind the nerve. I'm using my thumb and I am dropping my elbow so I can get a good bit of force up my lateral scalenes towards the mastoid process, but I'm going on to the transverse processes underneath those. Come around even more to the back. From there, you will pick up, of course the trapezius is in the way, but if you get under there, you will feel the levator scapulae. Can you take your thumb right up your neck all the way?
Can you take your thumb right up your neck? I want to point out something before we get all the way around to the back. We're already around to the back, but let's just back up a second. So we felt where it really hurt. We went to the front. We worked. Felt where it really hurt. On Tom's command, we went back and up and up and up, right? So here's another thing you can do instead of, as you want to allow your system to feel how these muscles work. We're not just trying to get them to release. We're trying to remind our nervous system how they function in the first place. And this can give the nervous system clues to, wow, maybe I'm holding on to that tension more than I need to, really. And these unconscious comparisons are being made by the nervous system as we do any kind of movement-based training of the nervous system or touch-based training. And when you're self-massage, just like when you're massaging another person, all you're really doing is you're advertising inappropriate clenching to the nervous system in such a way that the nervous system itself can conclude that this chronic clenching is unnecessary, and the nervous system itself yields. Sometimes it yields while you're touching. Sometimes just drawing attention to this area is enough so that over the next hour or two, as I move, as I talk, as I look up, as I look down, as I lean forward, and all this stuff is moving, that I've drawn the nervous system's attention to, the nervous system continues to compare. I think the massage is over, but as I'm going about my business, the nervous system is continuing to release excess tonus, as we say in the Feldenkrais method. Chronic tension is the everyday word for that. So I'm going to back up a tiny bit. Now we've gone around the back, so we worked on the thing. Tom's coming up the back now. Let's back him up a touch, and here we go.
And you take your thumb right up your neck all the way to the top. Obviously, don't do this, especially if you're doing it as deeply as I'm doing it right now, because I really am just so tired of my neck being hyperextended and in this frightened position. So let's get that anterior scalene. After you get the sternocleidomastoid, the anterior scalene is where that kind of breath gets stored. Very, very often that feeling of gasping. And you can get that with the anterior scalene, which I can follow really right up to C3. Whoops, missed the nerves. Catch that middle one.
One more note. In any of these sort of big, painful muscles, and Tom just moved past this, but here's a critical one, always tight. Down at the bottom, feels very creepy. This is a self-defense, martial art, the pressure point you use. So when you're on these muscles that really have a lot of discomfort, you can press and press and press, but you can move your head, like I said. But the other thing you can do to really get the work off where I'm pressing, I can lean my body forward. That makes all the work start here, because now this is the part of the body that's fighting gravity. And this part that I'm pushing, that's on the underside, relaxes naturally because it's not doing as much work to fight gravity. And by coming up slowly, it's clenching again, but not quite as tight. I'm moving my head to, again, feel that muscle in more and more detail, and I can lean over again. Give it a little break while the pressure's still there. I can move my hand around. I'm giving it a little twist hold for me right now. That it likes that. Maybe I pet the side of my head that's doing the work to remind it not to do too much work. And wow, as I'm tapping the opposite side, that's relaxing underneath. Tapping reminds the system, again, it draws its attention here now. Is this doing too much work? It's holding my head up, but is there more clenching than necessary, or is there just enough clenching going on this side to keep my head in this position? And as I do that, the whole time I've been talking to you, my thumb's on exactly, wow. Now when I stand up, it's so much softer. But look at all the various things I did. Tom is showing us how we can work with the thumb, with the tool, with the massaging part of it. What I want to keep throwing in is this idea of move and do things with the part getting massaged. So there's the most information possible going to the nervous system via this contact. And we shall continue with Mr. Tom. Here we go.
And you can get that with the anterior scalene, which I can follow really right up to C3. Whoops, missed the nerves. Catch that middle one. And I just use my hand on my chest or whatever, but I'm holding my hand out of the way so you can just see my thumb going straight up the middle scalene. Next one back is is my collar in the way? God knows, I'm just doing this thing off the cuff. Up the posterior scalene, and then One more back for the levator scapulae. Can you miss the levator scapulae? No, it's right there. You got it. And just try to follow that up towards the transverse processes as well. Okay, from then we're going on to the back, and you can feel those cables and all that stuff. So using your fingertips or your thumb tips, whichever works for your hands, we're going up those cables towards the back as you drop your chin into your chest. I'm probably dropping the voice into the microphone, but too bad. Really make it longer. So getting in behind all that hard stuff that we just did with the scalenes and getting the erector spinae to come down and looking down. And you can even go into a roll down on this. I'm probably now going right out of the picture. Can you read the titles in my library? I ought to do a tour of my library sometime. Okay, last piece though, very important. In the times of eye fixation on the computer, in the times of fear, a big place that this gets lodged is right under your skull and back. The oculomotor reflex and all these little muscles of the suboccipitals back here.
This is my personal favorite place to get stick body work. Right in here, oh, under the skull. Some people get frightened by contact here. I love it. It just feels so relieving to me. Let's keep up with Tom, but I just had to stop and celebrate that for me. This here, that's the sweet spot. That's the big bucket full of ripe peaches in the summertime for me, as far as body work goes. This is my happy place. Go for it, Tom.
Thumbs are nearly touching behind. Can you even see me through my... I promise I'm not going to be that guy with the long gray ponytail, but my hair is growing. Can you get your thumbs almost together, and can you get your thumbs under your skull? That's the most important. Put your fingers on your skull so your skull doesn't move, and then move your eyes around, and you'll feel that your neck is, those muscles at the top of your neck are responding to the movements of your eye. But now you can close your eyes and just start to go in. Here I'm right close to the midline. Here I'm a little bit out from the midline. Here I'm out at the edge of the shelf. If I went any farther, I'd get on to the mastoid process, the big old bone out here on the side. So these suboccipital muscles are between the midline and the mastoid process, but they're under the skull. How far can you insinuate, sneak, slide, waterway around your fingers so that they're under the skull? Now,
and I'll remind you once again that you can add a little thing in your trick. If you're having a hard time getting your thumbs under the skull, you can do something that Tom did not do. You can lean back. Exactly the same trick we did before. Move the work of keeping your skull upright to here while you're digging here. This will soften and allow you to get under more. Bring that thing under and then bring it back. I'm pressing here, I bring that under, it softens, all the work is here now. I get under the skull, and then I stand back up. Always use gravity as your friend. Whenever you're working on a person or yourself, if something's tough, let gravity, I'm touching here, I'll show it to you from the front. I'm touching here, I can't get under my skull. I'm gonna do the exact opposite to the top. Oh, now this is doing the work. This can relax. I can get under the skull. I can have that feeling, and then I can upright myself. And now I'm in there a little bit. Now I can do the work. I am under the skull now. I couldn't get in there when I was standing up before. So everything Tom said, of course, but just keep the part you're working on really active in the equation, where as somatic students, we want to avoid being a passive recipient to body work and massage. As a student, we want to be active. We want to be cognitively active. We want to be taking measures with our body. I can't stick it in here. Let gravity help me. No problem. So just keep in mind that it's a two-way street all the time. The part being worked on, from the point of view of the person doing the work, even if it's you, and then the point of view of the person who's receiving the work, and what can I do to advertise this tension and ease and the function of these muscles, the proper function of these muscles to my nervous system more by utilizing posture, movement, gravity, proximity. If I elongate this muscle, it's going to be harder for it to relax. If I shorten this muscle, it's easier for it to relax if it doesn't cramp up, of course, and this kind of thing. So let me back up a little bit more. Tom's just about done, but what great work. How do I back up? I'm losing it, people. Here we go. Mr. Tom, here we go.
A sneak, slide, waterway around your fingers so that they're under the skull. Now, if you now do a forward bend, you will feel that you tighten up the superficial layers and you can't get into the deep layers. In a way, you could do this on a pillow or something like that, where you lie down and your head is supported and go in under these and really press in under the skull and see if you can get those muscles to relax. You don't need to watch me doing this. You need to do it. The suboccipital muscles are so effective at helping the whole back line to relax, that whole back line that is in the fight or flight response, or a big part of it. Anyway, hope that's helpful. Take care. See you next time.
Thank you, Tom. I hope everyone enjoyed this little tour of the neck with Tom Myers, developer of the amazing Anatomy Trains system. It is a way of learning everything you need to know about fascia and how it helps you with movement, how to help fascia release. Tom has a bodywork system called KMI, which is an amazing adaptation of the Rolfing discipline, taken to next levels by Tom. Very highly recommend anything Tom Myers is involved in. You want to get your hands on it, visit Tom at anatomytrains.com. Get the book, get the training stuff, just go, go, go. Tom Myers, top mind in the things that we are concerning ourselves with here at Somatic Fanatic. Of course, today's Somatic Fanatic brought to you by Painworks. No matter what kind of pain you are in, training your nervous system to reduce tension, to organize your movement better, can significantly reduce pain that you're experiencing, whatever the cause might be, whether it's illness, whether it's trauma, whether it's emotional trauma that has put so much strain on your system that it's promoting inflammation and all kinds of things. Training your nervous system specifically to reduce pain is available to every single human being in the world. We all have a natural capacity to do this, chemical free, where you don't need a doctor, you don't need prescriptions. I'm not saying in any case, but I'm saying even if you're on prescriptions, even if you have reason for prescriptions, training your nervous system to a higher form of function will reduce that pain independently and very significantly from whatever pain medications you might be on, whatever the reason for your pain. We are going to do some training. We are here with Heather Beachum from Virginia. Her specialty, she's been on the show before, she is the equestrian specialist, and she must have people, I would imagine in the horse world, Heather, you got people who've had all kinds of accidents, who are in all kinds of pain. I guess fear probably plays into it as well. So welcome to the podcast today, Heather. I can't wait to get into this talk of pain with you, with someone who's around horse riders so much.
Thank you so much. And, we'll talk about horse riders, but as you said, it's everyone. Before they get on the horse, they're a person on the ground living their life. And so it sounds separate, but there's far more in common. And as I work with people, the number one thing is as a culture, we're used to thinking of ourselves in parts. So for instance, my elbow hurts and my knee hurts. So I have two problems. Well, actually, it's all connected. Nothing is in isolation. You are a whole person and a whole system. And exactly what you're talking about, so many people, endless people I work with, their pain meds, they're either off them or they're greatly reduced, or they're only once in a while, like if they overdo something or they, went back to an old pattern for a little bit or something like that. But to give you an example of what I mean, so working with the hips that get so tight, and we tend to think of, yes, of course, dysplasia and replacements and things like that. But it's also learning to be a lady. You got to cross your legs and, not swing your hips and, don't do things like that. And men have a lot of social constraints around their hips and pelvis too. Well, the problem is it's not just the hips. The hips and the lower back have a symphony of movement options available. And when that's cut off or limited, then it ekes out to the elbow and the knee and creates a pinch there, a torque. And so when I work with a person with Feldenkrais, it's not to not honor the person's pain with the elbow or the knee. It's to help the person make a mental shift of you're a whole person. You are so big and so capable, and you have so many options, and we're gonna bring this all out. And today we're gonna talk about the hips and the lower back. So much lower back pain, interconnected. And then of course always help them connect it to the pain that's most on their mind. It might be the hips, it might be the back, but if it's their elbow, so they can, when they leave the session, they have something to work with, that my hips and back help my elbow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Dr. Ida Rolf, the founder of the famous body work method Rolfing, she has a famous saying from the 50s or the 60s, when it comes to pain, where it is, it ain't. It's a pithy little phrase that means that we don't always know. Sometimes your elbow hurts because you smacked it on a bowling ball and the bone hurts, and that's why it hurts. But a lot of our pain is tension exacerbated. At least it's hanging around way longer than it needs to, based on muscular tension. And we talked before in the podcast about how people have a, what would you call it, a not very clear idea of stretching. They think that stretching will help pain, but stretching your arm, like sports stretching, if we're doing a cognitively passive, I am stretching my arm now. And after I stretch my arm feels better, and there's bigger range of motion. And now tomorrow morning, I'm right back where I started. I'm stretching the arm again, right from the beginning, because there's two factors, everybody, when it comes to range of motion and what we're talking about. There's the length of the fascia. This is called extracellular material. It's the film you see on steak. It's a web of, it's alive, but it is not this. It's not the active thing that's pulling. It's what the muscle cells are pulling on. The muscle cells are they would be liquid. If not for fascia, you could pour them out like gravy. They might contract and the bowl of gravy might get a little smaller and larger, but they would have no use in and of themselves. So when we're talking about range of motion and the difference between stretching, pulling on fascia has elastic properties where it'll pull, and some will pull more than others. And then ultimately, if you stretch fascia for more than a minute, and in the 10-minute range, it has what's called plastic properties, where it won't go all the way back. But this, unless you're not shutting off the commands of the muscle cells to contract. That requires the nervous system to do it. If you don't turn off those habituated commands to contract, then you can stretch all you want. You can fight those commands. But then when those commands take place, it's just going to, in your sleep, shrink that fascia back to the original length it was. And your motion isn't going to get any better.
I'm a living proof of that. I fell off a horse. I broke my right arm right there. And, I didn't need surgery or anything, but you put your arm in a sling for a while, we're talking serious frozen shoulder. I didn't know about Feldenkrais or somatic education. I had never heard about any of that. I dutifully went to the physical therapist. I'm not saying anything about physical therapy. They have wonderful things to offer. It's a different idea. And I did the whole protocol. I did everything, and I couldn't lift my arm up more than that. That was all and even that was tough.
Mhm.
And it was a painful process, and it was terrible. So then I discovered Feldenkrais. Well, look, I could take a ballet class. It's, the whole range of motion, and it came from central nervous system training. And as my shoulder improved, my hip improved. So, I was on this spiral downhill because of the frozen shoulder and all that. And now I'm on the spiral up of increasing comfort and on and on and on, and function, of course. But it's really, that's what I am so glad you're doing this platform, because to re-inject into the general population, you're a whole person, and you have the ability to create all these positive changes, just as you're saying, without strain, without drugs, without, feeling badly about yourself, like what's wrong with me. You hear that a lot, with, I'll go back to riders because I hear it a lot. Like the lady sprained her ankle. Well, now she can't get her weight down. She knows it in her head, but she can't do it. And, well, what's wrong with me? I have no ability. Well, yes, you do have ability. So off the horse. Before we get to riders, we're talking about off the horse. We reestablish that because it was pain and then it goes into her hip. And just as Feldenkrais did for me with my frozen shoulder, we do for her with her ankle. And then we apply it to riding, but it also applies to her walks. It applies to being able to reach something off the shelf. It's all connected. You're a whole person. Everything you do is connected. It isn't one thing when you're walking and another thing when you're driving and another thing when you're playing with your children. It's all the same thing. And that is what I'm so excited for people to reconnect with. So, we, in our earlier conversation, we talked briefly about the children on the playground, how they just, every part of them goes. And, and with adults, what I often think of is like, think back when you were a little kid and you were running down a hill and, you had to figure out how to not fall flat on your face or go back on your butt. And it was everything participated. And just as everything participates in an action, everything participates in the a resurrection of your abilities, of your ease, and of your self-belief. Because this is what happens to people. Say, well, I've gotten too old. I can't play tennis. I've gotten too old. I can't run anymore. Well, maybe you need some help with your knee. This isn't a medical replacement, but no matter what physical situation's going on, movement is always a component in that. And without it being addressed, you can't move forward, just like with me with my frozen shoulder. I had wonderful medical care, but I would not have ever, I would have, years later, I probably would have had to stop riding. And so this is what I'm so excited for people to understand, their power to create the changes they want, the power that they have. It's a beautiful thing, and it can be accessed with such ease and in simplicity, really. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, Heather, we are about to do something exciting with you. We're about to do some pain-related movement training, some Feldenkrais training under the direction of Heather Beachum. And why don't you tell us what we are in for in the broad sense of it, what props we might want to set up as we head toward doing this absolutely free pain easing training that you've been so generous to provide our viewers today.
Oh, my pleasure. You may right at home in your favorite sitting room or living room. You just need a piece of floor, enough to lay on, maybe a few feet to each side. If you want a mat or a rug to lie on, a stool, and a wall. And it's always good to have towels if you feel you need something under your head. You can, of course, have that. In Feldenkrais, it's always you do as much as you need to be comfortable and no more. That's the start of developing your sense of feel for yourself, for your ease in yourself. And so you have absolutely everything you need, but you come to trust yourself. That's all I need. I don't need more. And it's part of that reconnection of self-trust, and it all happens through the central nervous system.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Heather is going to remind you of this during the lesson itself, but I just want to remind everybody, so many of us, especially people watching for the first time and never done any kind of nervous system training, no somatic arts at all. We live in a world where we are supposed to grin and bear it, where we're supposed to push through, where we're supposed to achieve the old saying, one step forward, two steps back, but then another step forward and another step forward. And we're going to slog through this. And in the world of pain management, this has also leaked through into the mentality, at least for people who are casually thinking about, I must do something. I'm in pain, but I must get my work shift done. I must get the garbage out, and therefore I'm going to do it. But training to overcome pain needs a very, very different mindset. And that means you don't want to grin and bear it. You want to take the time right now before we start to get all the pads you need, all the towels you need. You're in your house. Nobody's looking at you. You don't have to prove anything, especially
anybody.
Yourself.
That's right.
With nervous system training, it's take one step back so you can take two steps forward. It's the opposite. You're going backwards. We are recapturing a way of learning that infants and toddlers use. This is not the kind of learning of 2 + 2 = 4. It's not law. It's not philosophy. It's not in the logical realm of how we learn. This is in the physical realm of learning. Even the most basic movements are tens of thousands of commands a second, hundreds of thousands, millions a minute. We cannot consciously improve our movement even 1%. Our nervous system is making so many decisions. We cannot be aware of them. All we can do really is learn how to feel more. And you're going to do this with Heather in a very safe way. Test tube. I call it test tube. One thing at a time.
I love that.
Just a little test tube of just what we're really trying to do is focus using movement as a way of feeling more. It's really, we keep talking about movement and improving movement, but really the only thing we can actually do, it results in better movement, but the only thing we can do is train ourselves to feel more. And for people in pain, that may sound crazy. So feel more. I'm in pain. What am I going to feel more for? This is a very understandable misconception. Just trust us. And the way you learn to feel more is one little victory at a time, by setting yourself up the way Heather's saying, so you're as comfortable as you can be, and you move slower than you've ever moved before. You move smaller than you've ever moved before. And it may seem like you're doing nothing, but from a neurological standpoint, getting a handle on these building blocks, these subtle, I'm moving my shoulder up and down. If someone was 30 feet away from me, they wouldn't even see it. And I feel a little, I do, even though I'm doing this all the time, I feel a little stops and starts. You know what that means? That right at that angle, my nervous system, the great marionette that's pulling all my strings, has forgotten that when my shoulder's at this certain angle, it's forgotten how to just keep that going. That's a clue for me that I need to do that a couple more times until it becomes smooth. What it means is that we've all had this, I say this all the time on the show, but it's so important. I don't want to miss it for anybody who's just tuning into this one. We've all had a moment in our lives where we've tried to clench some muscle, some obscure muscle, and you just can't, oh yeah, there it goes. But this is not happening once in a while. you're probably remembering some like 1 or 2 instances of like that really being, this is happening all over your body all the time, where your nervous system just can't quite remember how to trigger those muscle cells in that particular order to make this movement, well, possible or efficient and ultimately elegant and easeful. So what we do for pain is the same we do for movement. Don't be shy about getting really tiny, about being really secure and safe.
And the other thing I really hope that people, that I love that your platform is delivering, is the power of awareness-based visualization, because it's the awareness that creates the change. And it's very, it doesn't seem logical, but there's a system to it that the nervous system understands. Because so sometimes, the pain is so great, it seems almost, you might be tempted to shrink back from even thinking, can I really do this? Maybe it's just I've had so much pain, I'm afraid to try. But here's what I want everyone to take away with today is, yes, you can make these tiny movements, but if that worries you, you just do it. Just follow the lesson in your imagination. The creator of this work, Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais, I love this. There's a video when he shakes his finger and he goes, your brain is smarter than you are. And when you visualize your brain, your central nervous system is at work. And I promise you, improvement will be made. And there'll come a day where it's like, you know what? I can make these little movements. I can do this now. That's how smart your brain and central nervous system are.
So everybody, we're in for a real treat now. So get your stool. You're going to need a stool. You're going to need a little pad, whatever's going to make you comfortable so you can lay down, and whatever's going to make you comfortable so you can sit up on a stool. And I think you're going to put your back against the wall at some point. Am I right?
At some point, we'll do a little bit of wall work, and
So
we
have a
might
little
be
bit of clear space in the wall. And,
it's about your size, maybe like to your elbows out, and that way you have enough space, and that's it.
On behalf of PainWorks, Heather, I really want to thank you once again for being generous with your time and your expertise to bring this marvelous work of somatic movement through the Feldenkrais method to people who've never gotten a chance to experience it before. And hopefully this lesson will spark some curiosity in some people of what is possible training with you, with Feldenkrais, or just what's possible within themselves, no matter how they want to train their nervous system.
Absolutely. And I just, can't wait to help people. And I can't wait for people to really, through your platform, really and truly reconnect with their potential and their self-confidence in self-improvement and the joy of living and possibilities that open up. So it's great.
So go get ready, get yourself set up to do this amazing free class with Heather. You do not want to miss this. Click on it right now. Click on the opt-in, go down, hit the pause button. I'll see you next time. Don't let me get in your way. You want to do this free training with Heather. And I will see you next time right here on Somatic Fanatic.